Day 99. So this is now pretty much the end of the journey back, as the 100-day process that it started out as being. And when I kind of look back to day one and then the first probably half of all of this, either sitting right here on this sofa and not even being able to talk about my day and get through it without just breaking down in tears halfway through, or having to pull over because I couldn't drive, or feeling like I didn't belong in the world, or even the opposite side of all that stuff where I was just ecstatic and feeling like an infant running around and being excited by everything. It starts to become more apparent to me that it's been such a monumental experience for me personally. And thinking about the years before I even started doing this, where I was living in that darkness, and now where I'm living in colour, I almost feel like I'm able to be the person that I probably looked like on the outside and was pretending to be, and genuinely be able to appreciate the goodness in that person, but also accept and acknowledge all the faults. And those distraction techniques I used to have of the obsessive rumination over something and then not being able to accept it, so detaching from everything and then trying to reattach with the world through relationships, and then that breaking down and having sort of suicidal thoughts about all sorts of things, and then trying to distract myself just to keep myself busy so I wasn't concentrating on the suicidal thoughts, all rewinding back into itself. Those kind of short-term coping strategies have started to fade away as I've managed to resolve the problems more and more, because there's no strategies that are needed to cope with them because they're not there. And it's a bit like when you suddenly need an electric cable that you've not used in years, so you open up that dreaded cable drawer and you just get this whole mess of entangled wires, and trying to get a short-term fix of just pulling out the one that you want and stretching it just makes things worse, until you can actually invest the time in unlacing all of the wires and concentrating on each one by one and removing them from the problem, until that whole confused mess suddenly starts to unravel and untangle, and you're left with the wires that were all tangled up by themselves, and you find cables that you'd forgotten you even had, and you start to use them and they make your life better. And you find some cables that you know you'll never need again, so you get rid of them and you move on. And you find the cable that you started looking for in the first place, which then allows you to do what you wanted to do. And that's almost exactly how this whole process has gone, where I've kind of stumbled across positives in my life that I'd forgotten about because they were wrapped up in negatives, and once I'd managed to resolve the negatives, I could then enjoy the positives. And I worked through and untangled some things that I probably never should have been carrying anyway, and actually once I'd separated them from the rest of the mess, I realised that I didn't need to carry them anymore and kind of boxed them up and moved on. And then ultimately the cable that I was looking for when I opened that drawer, which was firstly originally just to promise myself that I would actually live for another 100 days, and that's kind of now achieved, and I found that cable. But the second part was the idea that it might help one person, it might change one life somewhere. And I managed to find that cable as well. And once they're separated from all of the other cables, they become actually easier to appreciate. And actually one of the best kind of cables that I stumbled across that I didn't even know was there was the understanding that suffering in any way in silence and in secrecy is a far worse choice than making progress with help and support. And whatever that problem is, whether it's from something as simple as not knowing how to read and write, or to swim, or to do anything, or having some sort of addiction or mental health problems, or even wanting to be fitter and not wanting to admit that you've let your life get to the place that it has been. We build up those things into such a shame that we can't do them or have them or suffer with them, and we can't take that first step to start making it better because we get worried about how other people are going to perceive the fact that we had those issues in the first place. And one day I'm going to die, and you're going to die, and we're all going to die at some point. And on that day you can have looked back and just had that same problem stuck in that stagnated place for all of your life, or you can look at it and realise that when life threw you a challenge, you faced it the best way you could. And being absolutely 100% honest in my experience from this process, I haven't come across one single piece of negativity in the whole 100 days. And all of those worries about people judging me for having an issue in the first place weren't even there, and actually what happened was that people were inspired by my decision to try and make progress and better myself. And it's been a whirlwind, and it's been a marathon, and it's been a cocktail of all sorts of different emotions, but without question it's been the most worthwhile thing I've ever done in my life. And looking forward to the final day tomorrow in quite a somber way. So for the last time, share, subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow.